Hello, this is Shellye Archambeau. Please let me know if you can hear me. Sorry about the delay. We had a technical difficulty, but I think we're all set now. So first, thanks for joining me this morning. Let me explain why I'm creating these Ask Me Anything sessions. I've had the opportunity in my career to learn a lot, experience a lot, and over the years have developed some approaches, strategies, thoughts, and techniques. And I want a way to share them. And I can't meet with everyone one-on-one. So I thought I'd try to create live sessions to give people a chance to ask questions, provide answers, because many times questions other people ask, others can learn from. So hopefully you'll find some value in the next bit of time that we have together. So let me start by diving right into the questions. Okay, so the first one is about coaches. The person wants to know, did I hire coaches throughout my career and what benefits did I get while I was in my highest leadership roles? So that's a very good question. Coaches can play a really good role for folks that are trying to focus on some specific growth areas. I did have a coach. My first coach was actually when I became president of Blockbuster.com upon leaving IBM. And I talked to my boss about getting a coach, and the thought being, given that I was transitioning from a very large international company in technology into a media company, that it would be a good idea to have a coach to help with that overall transition, to ensure that I could be as effective as possible. And frankly, it was great because I'd never had a coach before. So for those that have not used one, the way my relationship worked with my coach, and by the way, it can be different for different people, is we would actually sit down. We sat down in the beginning, talked about what I wanted to accomplish. She happened to be female. She actually chatted and spoke with some of my direct reports as well as my boss, got a sense for both what the company was about, where the challenges were, things I ought to focus on, et cetera. And then we put together a plan of areas to indeed focus and dive into. And she and I met in person about every month, but we talked about every other week. So the cadence was, on the phone and then in person, on the phone, then in person, kind of every 2 weeks. And I had the coach, trying to remember, I want to say maybe 4 months, 5 months, was something like that. And frankly, it was helpful. So for people who are trying to grow and have areas that are either blind spots or feedback they've gotten that they're not sure, how do I actually tackle or resolve? Coaches can actually be very helpful. So I'm definitely a big supporter. Okay, next question. A few weeks ago, I reached out to the founder of an organization. Let's see, I don't want to read this whole thing. Bottom line, this person is trying to get some support from an organization. So reached out to the founder put them in charge with a project manager initially responded to the first email, but then went stone cold silent. How many times has that happened to you? It happens often. Many times we reach in, typically to a more senior person, we get a response, they delegate us to someone. And frankly, if we're not that person's priority, we can fall off the list. Question is, what do you do about it? The person saying, I'm afraid to go back to the person that originally went to because that's going over the project manager's head, and won't that create a problem in my relationship with the project manager over time? Well, the answer is that is a risk, but right now you're getting nowhere with the project manager. So frankly, you really don't have much to lose by escalating again, but escalate in the right way. Hold on a minute. So don't go to your initial contact and say, hey, the project manager never got back to me. Instead, go back to them and say, hey, I heard from the project manager about 2 months ago, but I've not heard anything lately. I'm sure there's been a lot on their plate. Just want to make sure this is still something that you as an organization are interested in pursuing, right? So that's the way to do it. Do it in a professional way get the response back, and typically the person just needs a ping to let them know that, hey, this is important to their boss. So don't be afraid to escalate if you've given it enough time and you've tried all that you can to actually follow up with the person that's been delegated to. Next one. This one is, how do you recommend, how do you recommend that an individual contributor become a people manager? What tactics do you suggest to take to make the leap to that role without experience? That's a good question. At some point, everybody becomes a first-time manager, folks who are rising into the management ranks. And what their bosses are looking for to determine who should be a manager is people who exhibit leadership skills. So, as an individual contributor, you can still demonstrate leadership skills. You have the ability to show your initiative. So, for instance, when there are cross-functional projects or teams being pulled together to work through things, try to actually take on a leadership role. Take on the responsibility to actually organize people. Take on the opportunity to actually help people outside of your own area get things done. When bosses see that kind of activity, then they say, this person has leadership potential. Because what you're trying to prove is that you have the capability to be given the opportunity. So look for ways to show that that's the case. Many times, people can become what I call floor leaders, right? And what that means is they tend to be the people that take the initiative. Hold on, people, I'm struggling with a cough. Oh, sorry about that. They tend to be the people who take initiative. So when they see something that needs to be done, or when they see an opportunity, they're the ones that pull others together to actually make things happen. That's a floor leader. It's not like anybody's designated that you're officially responsible, but you just gravitate into that position. So when you demonstrate the ability to pull your peers together, to organize, to structure, even to communicate, those are the skills that bosses want to see when they're trying to determine who should be promoted to manager level. The other thing you can do, if you don't have the opportunity for that, then try to develop some of those skills outside of work. You can do that through volunteering. Many nonprofits need help and are looking for folks to participate. And you can get engaged in a nonprofit and lead teams or projects or efforts to actually build up those skills and then share what you do with your boss. So all of those things are elements that you can indeed strive for. But let me tell you what the biggest thing is. Tell your boss what you want to do. You'd be surprised how many people don't actually share with their managers what their aspirations are. So share your aspiration. Let them know. Listen, I know I'm an individual contributor. I want to become a manager. What do you need to see from me to give me that opportunity? And then hear what it is, and then go work on it, and then come back and checkpoint. 6 months later, you asked me to do this, this, and this, and here's what I've done. Is it measuring up to what you expect? What do I need to work on? Make this a collaborative effort between you and your boss by being explicit. One of the things that I like to say is, if you don't tell the universe what you want, the universe can't help you get there. So let people know what your aspirations are so that you can work on it together to achieve it. All right, next one. This one's about branding. The question is, when your personal brand and your current job or role brand have some overlap and some differences, how do you measure improvement or success between your personal brand and your job brand? Which one's more important? Well, I'll be candid. You only have one brand. So even though you have a job and you play a role, everything that you do, frankly, personally and professionally, all feeds into your brand. So it really is one brand. So when you say which is more important, it doesn't matter which is more important. You need to ensure that how you behave, act, how you respond, how you communicate, all those things are consistent with who you are and who you want to be, because it's only one brand. People don't look at the Shellye Archambeau board director or Shellye Archambeau former CEO or Shellye Archambeau volunteer or Shellye Archambeau writer or Shellye. They don't look at different brands of Shellye. I just have one. So as you're living your life, as you're doing your job, as you're out and about in the community, all of that is feeding a singular brand. So it's important that you act with the integrity that you have and that you are doing things that are consistent with your values, because it's just one brand. And by the way, people ask me sometimes when it comes to branding, well, how do you build your brand? Or how do you define your brand? And one of the things that's important to understand is you're doing that every day. Everyone has a brand, a personal brand, because people have expectations on you based upon how you've behaved, how you communicate, and what you do. So it's actually kind of important to decide and reflect on who am I and who do I want to be, right, as I move forward? And is that consistent? Because you're creating brand attributes every single day. Okay. Next one. This person actually has a group of students that they're starting to work with, looks like with an app, and they want to be able to give them the best shot in life after graduation. So the question is, um, how do I give them the best shot at getting their dream job upon graduation? I will have them do things like reach out to potential mentors, reach out to potential internship opportunities, do industry related projects to showcase their aptitude, produce a podcast or YouTube channel to showcase their learnings, all of those things. Is that enough? And what else can they do? Well, first of all, that's a great list. Coming out with the job that you want, whether you're coming out of college or frankly, you're already in the workforce, but you've got aspirations for something different. It really is about setting a goal. So, what is your aspiration? And then putting a plan in place to actually achieve that goal. So, what is it that I want? Whether that's your first job that you're targeting, or it's the next job, or frankly, 3 jobs from now. What is it you want? And then what has to be true for you to get that job? And then how do you make it true? That's the approach that I've used my whole life. So when I wanted to be CEO, great. I want to be CEO. That's my goal. So what has to be true? Well, I need to have the experience, have demonstrated the skills, have the visibility, etc., to actually be able to tap for that overall. So what jobs do people who are CEOs, what jobs did they hold before they were a CEO? And then I would work from there. Great. They were heads of sales or heads of chief operating officers or EVPs of product or whatever it might be. And then I'd peel a layer back. And then what did they do before that? And what did they do before that? And then I'd build out my plan for the jobs and roles and experiences that I needed to build. So for anyone, set your aspiration and then figure out what needs to be true for you to actually get there. And then how do you make it true? And that's how you build your plan to execute. So the ideas that this person has for the students to get their jobs, which is, hey, get mentors, talk to industry people, those are all things you need to do. But it's also important to have a target. And even if you're not sure exactly what you want to do, you want to build experiences that help you to at least have more and more opportunities. I call it building flexibility. If you're not sure exactly what you want to do, that's okay. but at least start building a set of skills and or experiences that give you a wide range of options versus a narrow range of options. When you pick industries, for instance, that are growing, they will have companies in them that are growing. And companies that are growing are always short on resource. And therefore, there tends to be more opportunity both to get expanded roles, to be promoted, all of those things. So if you're not sure exactly what you want to do, but you want to grow, then picking a growing industry and a growing company is a good idea because it will just create more opportunities and give you choices as you build that overall decision. Just like when you're in school, and back to the college question, focusing on majors that actually show that you can analyze, think, and problem solve are skills that are transferable across a broad range of jobs. So if you're not sure exactly what you want to do, that's okay. But then I encourage people that at least get degrees that have a broad appeal so that when you do decide, odds are you'll have a broader set of choices than a narrow set of choices. And the same is true in the job market. All right. Next one. My specialties are financial and information technology general controls. Therefore, my goal is to become an on-call or independent board member who can assist boards with ensuring that IT governance is in place for their respective organizations. What steps should I take to propel me in this direction? Okay, so first, they're saying their goals are two things, either to be on call or an independent board member. Let me talk about being an independent board member. When companies are bringing on board members, they have a fixed number of roles, meaning the average board ranges from 6 people to like 12 people. And I'm talking corporate boards. So they don't have a whole lot of roles. As a result, they have a set of skills that they decide they want to have represented on their board. And typically that's a pretty long list. So they need to find people that they add to their boards that actually bring multiple skill sets to be able to check more of the boxes as they build out their board. It's very rare that board members look for people who frankly just have one narrow expertise. Pardon me. So as a result, what I will tell you is if your focus is really IT governance and how to ensure that boards are doing a good job at IT governance, then it may not be a board role that you're looking for, or that would frankly bring the most value for your skill sets. It's probably more of a consultant and or an advisor to do that. It's, as I said, because it's rare that a narrow role will be added to the board. They want broader roles. So if you're still looking for a board role and that is your background, my recommendation is as you build your career, you need to build a broader base of skills in addition to that. Most boards want people who have actually run a sizable profit and loss, P&L, or they want people who have strong industry expertise, again, at scale. Remember, people who join boards are there to be able to add value, advice, perspective, and help with strategy for companies. So they need to be people that the CEO sees as people that can help them, in essence, do their job better. So you need to bring a set of expertise that's commensurate with the executives that are actually in the company themselves. So as you're aspiring towards a board role, really focus on how you build a set of expertise managing businesses at scale in one way or another, and or build a broad base of expertise in areas that are in demand. And by the way, it's really easy to look at areas that are in demand for boards because you can just search on them. Every board has to have a financial expert, and a financial expert typically is a CFO. Boards want people who've been CEOs because they want people on the board who indeed have sat in the seat that the CEO is sitting in to be able to give and share that overall perspective. Now, that's not all the roles, but typically 40-50% of the people fall in one of those two categories. Then beyond that, they tend to look for people, again, based upon their business, who have industry expertise, perhaps marketing expertise, people who might bring regulatory, if they're in the regulatory space, folks who have global, who have done transformation, digital, right? All of those things. But again, it's not a singular skill. People who have had experience across a couple of skills. So hope that's helpful. All right. If you have a question, feel free to text it in or send it to me, but I've answered all of the ones that people have actually sent in advance. Let me take a minute to share with all of you that in addition to doing these sessions to try to share the perspective and wisdom that I've gained through the years of my overall experience, but another initiative that I've taken to help share is I've written a book. So there's a book called Unapologetically Ambitious that you can pre-order on Amazon. So excuse the commercial, but I'm pretty excited about it. So I hope you will take a look. But it's all about how to get what you want out of life by being intentional. And it shares strategies, approaches, and techniques for actually making that happen. Okay. All right, everyone. Oh, I see one coming in. Here's a question. The question is, Shellye, how do you let people know what you're doing? I work hard, but I'm not sure that everybody sees what I'm doing, and I don't necessarily get the recognition that I expect. Well, that's a really good question and something that a lot of people struggle with. And you don't want to walk around saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. But at the same time, working hard and putting your head down and just getting it done, frankly, isn't enough. And it isn't enough because people are busy, very busy. And therefore, they don't always have time and effort to notice what everyone else is doing. So one of the techniques that works very well in terms of letting people know what's going on without, looking at, look at me, is to share and respond when people ask you, how are you doing? So instead of when people say, hey, how are you doing? Instead of just saying fine or good or great or something simple, add some information. I'm doing great. I just finished a major project for XYZ company and they were really pleased with it. All right, you let people know what you were doing. How are you doing? Oh man, I'm exhausted. I just spent the last 2 nights trying to get this proposal in to this company and we got it in on time and I'm pretty sure it's a winner. Shellye, how are you doing? Right? I am, and then fill in the blank. So just tell people what you're doing as part of answering their question. But that's the simplest way. Okay, here's another question. Hello, Shellye. My specialty is building communities. I'm a project manager in a SaaS software startup. How can I use these skills to propel my career to be a career CEO? All right, so first of all, product management is a great skill. And if you look at it, what product managers are doing are trying to make sure that they are defining a product and or service or whatever it might be that actually meets very specific needs in the marketplace and that therefore will be successful. And in many companies, product managers are actually measured on the success of their products. Well, if you think about it, a lot of those same skills are the skills that you can also use in building a company. So you can think about people who started out in product management, like Ben Horowitz. Ben Horowitz was in product, and he ultimately became a CEO and then venture capitalist. So it's absolutely where you can start and to grow. The key is to keep gaining expertise to make sure that you are indeed building successful products and that you are interacting across the organization. So people see you not just as the product manager for this product, but they see you as a key to success in product deployment, selling, right? All those elements around the business, because you need in time to actually have experience across the organization to build a broad set of skills to be able to rise to CEO. So you can absolutely do it. And I encourage you to set a high ambition. Big believer in being ambitious and going after your goals. All right, next one. Most people working in sales, BD, business become CEO or CTO of the company. Is that true on a broader scale? Hmm. It's actually mixed, especially in technology. In technology companies, you'll find a number of CEOs who've actually come from product. Um, I think of Todd McKinnon, CEO of Okta, right? He came up on the product side. So you can absolutely get to CEO and product. One of the, I call it my secret weapons in my career, is I'm a big believer in doing homework. And when I say homework, I use that term because homework doesn't stop in school. Homework is basically being prepared. So it's doing the research, getting the information so that you can be as prepared as possible for whatever you're facing. So if you want to be a CEO and you're currently today a product manager, go do the research. There's a lot of CEOs out there who came up through product. Go find them. Go look at what their career steps were. And then you can build a plan for yourself to be able to achieve it. Remember what I said? Set a goal, figure out what has to be true to achieve that goal, and then go make it true. Next question. Shellye, if you're in uncharted territory in business, a new geography, new customer, how do you go about educating yourself and making sure you ask the right questions and make the best decisions? That's a pretty broad question. So, when you actually move to a new area, and I've done it, I worked in the US the majority of my career, but one of my roles was in Japan. And I literally picked up my family and moved to Japan for 2 years. So, uncharted territory? Absolutely. The way that I've found in terms of to be successful in that kind of environment is to look at your team around you and figure out how do you help them be successful. Because if you can help them be successful, they will in turn help you be successful. Spend the time to understand the nuances of what's different. Business culture differs geography by geography. So understand what that is. And the good news is a lot of people write about it. So it's not hard to find. Back to doing your homework. Go do your homework. Understand what's different, how do things work, what's important. Figure out the business organizations to actually get involved with or connect with where you go. Look for ways in which you can build some support and structure. If you went to college, a lot of universities have alumni organizations all over the world. Perhaps there's one. If you were in a fraternity or sorority, try to leverage that. If you have a passion, there are also NGOs everywhere. So find something that you can also engage with outside of your job and your work that's actually in that community to help you build some strength and frankly get to know people, which will then help you build a network. And ultimately, having a network is important to overall success. So do the research, try to understand what's different in the culture, figure out the team and how can you help the team. I call it servant leadership. I'm a big believer in servant leadership. Figure out how you help your team be successful and they'll help you be successful. And in terms of the right questions to ask, that's almost too broad for me to answer. If there are questions to ask before you take the job, that's one thing. If it's questions to ask in terms of once you're there, that's another. So I'm not sure what kinds of questions you're referring to. So that one I'm not going to be able to address. But hopefully the others were helpful. All right, folks. Those are the questions that I have today. Thank you very much for joining me live. I will be doing this every month and I'll be announcing it on LinkedIn. So feel free to follow me to ask whatever questions you have, and I'm happy to share my perspectives. And oh, by the way, do me a favor, go out there and pre-order Unapologetically Ambitious. It's really important for new authors to show that there's actually some momentum and interest in the overall book. And then let me know once you get it what you think. All right. Thanks very much and have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.